he's trying to do with respect to China what other presidents for years and years have been unable to do. They're meeting again in January. They had a 90-day truce. What happens after that? Well, what are we, 60 or so days away now? What happens in March?
What happened with China and NAFTA for a long time, it wasn't that presidents were unable to do, they were unwilling to take the steps that this president is taking. Now, I'm encouraged by the last meeting that the president had with the president of China. And the president of China said, and President Trump said, okay, give us 90 days to work through a lot of these grievances that you have, and they are going to get back to us. They have already started it with tariffs on cars have been lowered. So I think that we have to be patient and let the president be the president of the United States and not respond to every soundbite, every misleading article, every expectation that might be out there on behalf of short-term investors. Go to 50,000 feet is what I'm suggesting to the people.
Mr. Kaine, you were a presidential candidate and a successful business owner, and I think you're right about making headway, so to say, with China. But my question is, do a lot of businesses want to make headway with China and investors on Wall Street? It seems like, do they like the status quo of cheap stuff out of China at any cost? Is that just the voters who want to see that? Or is that really, would you say, investors and even business people who are buying products from China?
Here's what I know about business people. They will adjust. They may have enjoyed cheap stuff out of China for a while in order to prop up the products that they were selling here in the United States. If they see that there are some new rules, they will adjust, just like they adjust to the changes in interest rates, changes in the financial markets. Businesses have to run their businesses based upon cash flow, working capital, and what it's going to cost them. So when the Fed raised the rate 0.25 basis points, well, they will adjust. Yeah. Short term, you got a lot of people who are going to overreact to that. But most businesses will find a way to adjust.
GoPro pulling out of China, Dipping Dots, the ice cream people, the small little dots. They finally made headway in China, but now they have to, dairy prices have gone up. They've got to figure out their next strategy. So this brings the intention is right, but the process with which we get to a deal and a level playing ground with China is tough. So would you make the argument that maybe we should have an uneven playing ground instead?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, I didn't think you would, but I asked you the question anyway. Did you sense the uptick in my voice at the end?
I did. Thank you. Here's why I don't believe businesses or the president and administration are going to be looking for an uneven playing ground. And level playing field is good for everybody around the world. When you start making concessions to one country, another country is going to want to make those same concessions. That's the fact of the matter. And so if everybody is playing from the same playbook, guess what? I think it is in the best interest of everybody concerned. So no, in the short term, if you're looking at specifics, yes, it may look as if it's not helping American businesses. But once again, I want to remind people to go to 50,000 feet and also look at it longer term. The fluctuations that we saw this week alone in the stock market indicate that you have a lot of people that are reacting to things on a short-term basis. That does not say much about the validity and the solidity of the fundamentals that are in place that aren't going to be rolled back. Regulations aren't going to be rolled back up. Tax cuts aren't going to go back up. And now the president is trying to work on trade deals. That, to me, sounds like a very sound strategy, and we, nor the press, nor the financial markets, can overreact to individual changes that they may get alarmed about that might affect an individual business. But the president is trying to help the entire economy.
All right, Herman Cain, we have to leave it there. Thank you. Enjoy your day.